The Backrooms began as a whisper, not a shout, a single photo, the color of old nicotine-stained drywall and corporate despair, paired with a short paragraph that described slipping out of reality and ending up in a place no one could name but everyone seemed to recognize. That was the whole point, the uncanny familiarity. The feeling that you'd been there before, even if you hadn't. The lights hummed with that specific kind of fluorescent buzz that isn't just annoying, it's invasive, like it gets under your skin. The carpet looked damp. The air was probably warm but dry, like an old office with a broken thermostat. There were no windows. No clear way out. And that was it. That was the entirety of the original post, an image and a single paragraph. But it hit like a virus in the collective internet unconscious. Within days, there were dozens of threads speculating on where this place came from, what it meant, how it worked. People projected their own fears onto it. Claustrophobia. Isolation. The fear of going insane in an infinite space that never changes. The fear that you could call for help forever and no one would ever hear you. The fear of existing beyond the borders of meaning. And it spread, as these things always do on the internet. It went from 4chan to Reddit to YouTube and eventually into entire wikis, Discord servers, fanfiction communities, and game prototypes. It became a new kind of internet myth, something like Slenderman or SCP, but different, quieter, more ambient, less reliant on monsters or gore or violence. It was about a mood. The Backrooms was the feeling you got walking alone in a mall after it closed. It was that stretch of hallway in your school that no one used anymore. It was the lobby of a hotel you remember from childhood but couldn't name. It was a dream you had once and forgot, until that image brought it all rushing back. And what made it work was its vagueness. It wasn't lore. It was suggestion. It was implication. That subtle sense that there was something just out of frame that you really didn't want to meet. But of course, nothing stays mysterious for long. The more people got involved, the more they wanted to build. People started writing new levels, imagining what would happen if you went deeper. What was level 1 like? Level 2? Could you escape? What kind of creatures might live there? Were there rules? Was it alive? Was it a simulation? What if you could bring things with you? What if time worked differently? What if different people saw different rooms? And so, like all internet myths that grow beyond their origin, the Backrooms became an open-source multiverse. One person would post a level that was a dark industrial nightmare, full of leaking pipes and shadowy creatures. Another would post a level that looked like a sunny IKEA, endless and looping, but wrong in ways you couldn't quite describe. Another would invent a level that was just an empty void with one chair in the middle and a phone that rang but never made a sound. Some were brilliant. Some were goofy. Some were horror masterpieces. Some were just memes. And at first, it all felt right, like a creative explosion. But it didn't take long for the cracks to show. The first major split happened between fans who wanted to keep the Backrooms vague, analog, and horror-focused, and those who wanted to turn it into something more detailed, structured, gamified. Suddenly there were stats. Entities were categorized. Factions were invented. There was trade. Maps. Resource systems. Scientific research outposts. People wrote entire backstories for the Major Explorer Group and other survivor organizations. The original Level 0, once terrifying in its sterile emptiness, now had maps and escape routes and spawn conditions. Even almond water, the only vaguely mentioned item in early lore, became a literal healing item with tiers and lore and variants. One version of the wiki claimed that the Backrooms were created as a kind of dimensional dump by a post-human civilization. Another said it was a glitch in the universe. Another implied it was a kind of purgatory. The more people added, the less the original tone could survive. What had been horror became survival. What had been subtle became saturated. What had been uncanny became over-explained. And then came the platform wars. The fandom wiki and the wiki.wiki had totally different ideas of what counted as canon. One leaned more toward grim, detailed sci-fi horror. The other embraced a more poetic, dreamlike style with less emphasis on game logic. Fans would argue endlessly in the comments and forums. Mods started banning content that didn't match the aesthetic of their version. Stories and levels were removed. Whole pages disappeared overnight. And as the community splintered, the quality dropped. The best writers left. The serious fans got tired. New users just copied what they'd already seen, and the cycle repeated. Worse, the algorithm noticed. The word Backrooms became a magnet for YouTube content, not just horror shorts, but low-effort garbage. Kids' channels started posting Backrooms vs. Siren Head videos. Minecraft versions popped up. TikTok flooded with Backrooms POV clips that were just people running through hallways with static sounds layered over them. The mystery was gone. It became a genre tag, not a story. A keyword, not a myth. And just as the quality fell, Kane Pixels entered the scene. His 2022 YouTube video was a revelation. It brought the horror back. It felt real, raw, terrifying, exactly what the Backrooms was meant to feel like. But it was also highly specific. Kane's version introduced the Async Research Institute, a government project experimenting with alternate dimensions. He gave us characters, technology, backstory. And people loved it, millions of views, hundreds of reaction videos, endless fan theories. But now we had a new canon. A YouTube canon. One that directly contradicted the wikis. And for many, that became the only Backrooms that mattered. New fans would comment on wiki entries asking, "Is this in Kane's version?" and get dismissed. Others tried to retrofit Kane's story into the wiki lore. Some just gave up. The Backrooms, which had thrived because it had no owner, now had a de facto one, the algorithm's favorite. After that, it was just a matter of time. Every horror creator on YouTube made their own Backrooms videos. Games were churned out endlessly, some okay, most bad. The mobile app stores were filled with cheap, low-effort clones using Backrooms in the title just to grab clicks. The atmosphere was gone. It was noise. You couldn't feel scared anymore because you'd seen every variation already. Every level. Every entity. Every trope. There were hundreds of levels now. Thousands, depending on how you counted. Some people wrote fanfic about romance in the Backrooms. Others turned it into SCP-style political drama. Others just mined the visuals for liminal aesthetic Tumblr posts. The space collapsed under the weight of its own expansion. The unknown was known. The infinite was categorized. And that's when the Backrooms truly died, not with a bang, but with a wiki update.